Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about corporate software. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, why is it that enterprises require custom software development for their growing business? Excellent question. The long and short of it is that the applications that they want to build is something that is not all that readily available as an off-the-shelf solution. So something that usually happens is that as a company grows from something fairly small up into something more sophisticated, they will find that there's only so far that they can stretch off-the-shelf solutions, such as a very classic example is platforms such as, say, Salesforce. Now, Salesforce is, of course, one of the world's most popular applications for especially large corporations and so forth, because it has like tons of integrations, it supports a lot of configurations. SAP is a similar sort of beast, right? There's tons of customization and so forth and so forth. Now, the tricky part comes when those sorts of platforms become a little bit unsustainable to use for certain use cases. So you have various companies who might have everything from the specific supply chains, or they might have inventory tracking systems, they might have like business logics type of things where it's sort of clunky to get all those processes and all those requirements into one of those off-the-shelf solutions. Now, when that happens, they're sort of faced with a choice, which is, let's say that you maintain it without custom software. Well, that's something we actually do today. So a concrete example would be you have entire in companies with tons and tons of departments where most of their processes and most of the way that they work is down to two main things: emails and Excel. You have no idea how many people spend most of their career dealing with those two things primarily. Everything is an email to someone with an Excel sheet somewhere, and you're updating values in some like order spreadsheet, or some tracking spreadsheet that you're using in order to do for there's a million things that you could be doing, right? And so usually what happens in those sort of situations is that they try to streamline those processes, but it usually starts as a manual process. And when they figure out that they want to streamline it, that's usually when they come to people like myself and like so forth and so forth. Unless, of course, we're talking about, they want a custom website or something like that, because then I hope it's sort of obvious to you why they would need custom software developed. Because as you can imagine, if you're one of the major brands in the world, it's really it's pretty weird, I would say, if there was a WordPress plugin for Coca-Cola, like their entire like purchasing flow and all the various features and so forth and so forth. So that part, I hope that is obviously for the internal systems and so forth. It's usually the thing that I'm talking about now. They have some manual process and they figure they can make that go faster, smoother, etc., etc., if they're using custom software. That's not always necessarily true, depending on how you look at it, but that is the general idea. And so now we get some software developers. These software developers are usually tasked with understanding roughly, all right, so all these emails that you're sending and Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that that you're maintaining, okay, so how are you going to convert that into some type of application that does something automatic or so forth and so forth. And it's not like there aren't alternatives here as well, guys. Like there's other like low code platforms for this sort of stuff and so forth and so forth. So if I'm completely honest with you, the thing that usually gets picked is very much based on roughly the sort of people that you have in the organization. And I've seen everything between people picking a low code solution for something that really probably shouldn't be a low code solution, to people building custom software for something that that really is just like a very, very simple off-the-shelf solution that anybody could like. There's like WordPress, or sort of WordPress plugins for it, or there's like an already made application. They could just use that immediately, but instead they just threw bunches of money at it and had a bunch of software developers get paid quite a lot to build something that's fairly trivial. But in general, that is the thing that dictates whether or not you're building software. And as I said before, the reason why this happens is because there is some need outside of what can be bought. People try to buy things because, of course, it's easier and more efficient usually if you can buy an off-the-shelf solution from some company and feel that, yeah, this fits your use case. But at times you have businesses and processes that are so custom and so intricate that you have very little choice other than to build your own solution. So what I want you to take away from this is that the reason why usually corporations need custom software has to want to do with if they have an end project or something like that. I mean, the systems that you use that might be like YouTube or Facebook or Google's search engine and stuff like that. That's the whole product. Like that is the thing that you are selling to people. So in that situation, I hope you understand that. I mean, there's no off-the-shelf solution that's going to do that for you. You have to build that yourself. But when it comes to corporations that have like internal systems, it's usually a question of that they have some manual process or something like that where there is no off-the-shelf solution and they have to build something custom, because one part, it's risky sometimes to try to use an off-the-shelf solution, and one thing that can be very nice if you make a custom solution is that you can fit it specifically to your needs. And in theory, that is something that is very desirable for an average organization, because as you said, if you have a growing business, it's really hard to predict how your processes might work or how your needs for business insight and like all these other things that might come as a benefit if you have some structure to the information and some systems that can kind of capture all the stuff that you're doing. If you can get that, that's pretty great for the average business in theory. In practice, it's a lot more messy than that. It's very, very rarely the case that especially internal systems turn out to be like these very simple and elegant solutions and so forth. What usually happens is that you have a bunch of various systems that handle pieces and snippets and like various projects that all across the place, and whether or not they make sense or not really comes down to whoever was in that department and made the decisions and stuff like that. And sometimes they make really good decisions and build something really great, and in many cases it might not be such a great idea. But the basic idea is always the same. Usually you have a really large amount of people or like some process that is super slow, and it's usually Excel and emails that is primarily being managed by, and they want to streamline it in some way, or they want to be able to measure things or like get business insight or something like that. And that's why you usually reach for a custom solution, because every company works differently, guys. And if you go to 3 different companies, even if they sell the exact same thing, it might be the case that they're working in completely different ways, because customers they're very chaotic and very liquid when it comes to how they do things, and it's really tricky to create like as an off-the-shelf solution something that is so perfectly fitted for every use case that it's going to fit every use case. There are systems that attempt to do this, but as you can imagine, if you have a really high configuration system like these really big bloated platforms, they're a bit of an investment in of themselves, and some companies feel that, well, we might not want to pay a license to SAP or Salesforce or so forth and so forth. We might want something a little bit more custom or simpler or so forth and so forth, and so they contact software developers and hire them to do that. Have a great day.